we set up this vision that we want to be the world's strongest brand. Even today, I can see parents who just give the child an iPad or a tablet, and then they're sort of kept quiet. And now the parents can do something else. Yeah. That's not Lego's parents. Lego's parents are engaged in their children. They will talk to them, they will sing with them, they will create with them, they will do more, and that is Lego's core. Together, maybe there were 4,000 people under me, but many of them wouldn't know who I am.
So, hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Folge Prinzipien des Wachstums. Mein Name ist Tareq.
Ich bin David Arian.
Und heute sitzen wir mit einem ganz, ganz besonderen Gast. Christian Majgaard war einer der Top-Manager bei Lego und vor allem für das Thema Brand, Marketing und Global Strategy verantwortlich. Christian, it's fantastic to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Danke vielmals.
Yeah, we decided on doing the interview in English, even though you're fluent in German, right? But since we're in a business context and we thought, the whole presentation was in English, we decided on doing it in English.
Do that, yeah.
We are currently in Monaco, actually, in the south of France, because you have joined us for the Monaco Masterpiece. And we have shared with you already the feedback from our customers. It's been fantastic. So
I'm happy to hear.
If you could, for the customers who did not make it with us here to Monaco this year, maybe introduce yourself, what you have done in your career, like on a short basis. Obviously, you've done a lot, so they get a quick introduction.
I'm Christian, as already said, Majgaard. I worked many years for Lego, and I came to Lego right from university, so I have a university degree in business. It's called a Science Master in Business Administration and Economics, and I came to Lego as very young. I started in the research department, and soon after I came, I also managed that. Then a manager who left Lego, he took me into a consulting company that ended up being PA Consulting. Then the family called me back, and I worked with educational business. I made the global educational business for Lego together, not alone, never alone, always with a nice team. I then ran Marketing Europe. And then I started being a corporate international responsible for business and brand development. The last 10 years I was there. And when I stopped, I started a consultancy together with the owner of Lego. So he was my chairman for many years also. So other than that, consulting, I've also done board work or Aufsichtsrat work. And I've been speaking sometimes like this with keynotes and question and answers. I've also done management workshops. And I have also done, guest professor, similar thing. Maybe professor, in Danish it means more than I am, but a guest teacher who comes to a business school maybe every year, 2 days in March, over a period of years. I've also done that for Siemens Leadership School in Feldafing. I came there, a day every year over a period of 3 years. Those kind of things I've also done.
So you've worked for Lego in 2 different periods. So you mentioned you did it once for 5 years in a row, and then you went on your own doing the consulting work, and then came back to do another 20 years.
Yeah.
What made you leave in the beginning, and 2, what made you come back? Apart from good compensation, obviously.
I was very, I had not my boss, but my boss's boss I really liked, and he was the head of Lego's marketing worldwide. He ran a little bit unclear with the family owners, so not in any bad way, just they couldn't agree. So he left. He actually called me and said, would you join in my new consulting company? And it was a little bit hard for me then to see what is my next career path. I had just become, I had been for a couple of years managing this global market research, but it was hard for me to see the next step. So I jumped out. Mm-hmm. And I had some very learning-rich years with this man. Who was a very clever man I could learn a lot from, and you learn a lot in consulting because you meet so many new, strange companies and business owners every day. And I came back simply because the family called me and said, we want you back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was actually no estrangement when you left the company. It was just that you had a mentor who took you under his wings and you joined him in his new company.
Yes.
Okay, and once you decided, okay, I've learned enough, is that when you decided to go back and reassume the position at Lego?
Both, and once in a while I could read in the paper, oh, now there's a new job there. Wow, that could have been me. Yeah. So at one particular time, I actually called the guy who had this job, which was about educational. managing a whole new division from scratch, building a global division only focusing on schools and kindergartens. I called him and said, I'm interested in that. As soon as I said that, the family was on also. So when I came, both the second and the third generation were there.
Okay.
We had built a good relationship already when I was there first time.
Understood. And they didn't make you feel bad when you first left. Is that also something?
No, on the other hand, they said we can understand it. And I remember the CEO then, a man by the name of Holger Andersen. I met also, incidentally, sometimes in Copenhagen or in the airport. He said, Christian, you come back. And of course I said, yes, I do. And so I did. And I liked it. Was my body and soul fitted so well with Lego's body and soul.
Crazy. So you helped Lego turn to one of the strongest brands in the world. Which branding decisions led this to this success?
It's not me alone. It's teamwork and sometimes also a little bit a bunch of coincidence. But the thing was, we felt and we knew we had a very strong brand that was sitting on a very tiny leg, namely just bricks and nothing else. And we could see these computer games coming in. We could see the way the movie characters coming in. So we stood with a feeling that we got to do something special here because there's dust coming on our brand image. Mm-hmm. And then we set up this vision that we want to be the world's strongest brand among families with children. That is easily said, hard done. And then, of course, we started working with how can we add categories to Lego without taking anything away from the brick. The brick is still the core. It's the king in everything we do. But could we add little categories around it that sort of make it a stronger brand? That make it more visible, that solves, not only does nice thing for the customer, it also solves issues we have, like the access to the customer, like the lack of link to the computer. Also utilizing even stronger that we know we can do more in the field of learning, that we can do more in the field of narration, storytelling, this Lego coming to life kind of thing, as you also saw in the movie. I didn't do any movie, that came after me, but it was this feeling that there's so much to do there. And then we ended up with a few category expenses. I spoke about the customer access, the theme parks, the brand stores, the website, the e-commerce one side, more on education, more with robots and computers, and more with narration and media, you can say. But always on the merits of it's got to work in the hands and minds of the children. It's got to be exciting, fantastic. It's got to, if not be directly creative, at least have this tone of creativity and learning in it. Still the colorful look and all these things also. That's how we did it. And then we did it stepwise. Some would argue we actually did it a little bit too fast. It basically happened between 93 and 97, sort of really when it took off. The mission or vision was clarified earlier. But it was a lot of things, but we were scared that we sort of were losing our image because there were so many things happening about us. We looked, or we could also sense that in research, that there was dust on the image, that people sort of, if they didn't say it directly, but they were sort of, and we're a little bit of the past. We're the parents' toys, we're the grandparents' toys almost, and we hated that. And we were lucky with this. We were pretty lucky with the theme parks. We were lucky with the robots. We were lucky with working with media. It went okay with doing more for schools. Actually, we also used our robots there. So it could have gone much worse than it did. So
Lego is a success story of adaptation. And for many entrepreneurs and businesses, there's this, especially for well-established businesses, you see the other side, which arrogance takes over. People cling on to their old successes. The one Swedish company, I think it is, that comes to mind is Nokia. I think is a Finlandian company, right?
Yeah, they're from Finland. Yes.
They were clinging on for dear life, and they were laughing at Apple. And there's the other flip side of companies evolving too quick and losing, like diluting the brand, what they actually stood for. What was the process like at Lego where you stuck to what is the core of Lego, while at the same time adapting fast enough while not staying in the past? Was it like a tug of war inside the corporate rooms?
And that was but I think it was done in a clever way, in the sense that we split up the headquarter in two areas. So we said there's new business areas, that is one focus, and then there's core business, that's another focus. And the idea was that it should never hurt our core business. It was still the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail was not the new stuff. The Holy Grail was the core business, that people buy Lego bricks. The child family buys Lego bricks. They should keep on doing that. And funding-wise, there was much more money involved, new investment involved in core business than in new business. I'm not saying that the new business didn't get enough. They did get enough. They got what they needed. So, but there was of course there were tensions, because there were people who said, well, for instance, I could meet a guy who said, you're using the money we earned, kind of things. And of course we spent money in the beginning. You cannot build a theme park and then have money day one.
Yeah.
It'll take years before you have money back. You cannot start a robotic product program and make a lot of money right away. There's a lot of new investment, and you also started launching it with poor margins, because you're not skilled yet. You don't have scale and volume yet. But there the family was fantastic, and it still is a lovely family. But Kel, particularly the third generation, he was is a very visionary man. He saw where this should end, so to speak. So he kept the spirit up for all of us who struggled with it every day.
Was Lego a funded business, or was it bootstrapped?
It is completely family owned, and the philosophy was we shouldn't even ask any banks about anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, why?
But when we built the parks, it was pretty tough for the cash flow.
Yeah.
There were years where we ate a lot of the cash flow, because now it coincided with a downturn we had in the end of the 90s. And this was not a market-driven one, although many people like to think about it that it was driven by internal, that we at a period in the end of the 90s changed too much too fast. We changed ERP systems 3 times. I don't know, have you ever been involved in an ERP change project?
No.
There are days where no one knows anything about the data, because it's all under change. And Lego had that. They changed a lot in management in the late 90s. So that hurt Lego, in my view. That is my view on it. I take some responsibility for that also. I'm not trying to say this was somebody else, but we just changed too much. And there were years where Lego didn't function well, and where core business didn't make a lot of money. Then it was expensive also to invest in theme parks.
Yeah.
You couldn't stop. I mean, it was rolling. You couldn't sort of say, we will stop here. We've digged a huge hole in the ground. Stop here. You finish. So that was a period where the holding company sort of backed Lego up, and there was a clever finance guy who found out, why don't we sell the parks to a theme park company, who then pays us the license.
Yeah.
And then the family buys some of the shares in that company, and that happened. It's called Merlin. So Merlin actually physically owns the Lego parks today, but Lego has a license, and Lego also has a huge share, or the family owner holding has a huge chunk of the shares there. So there has been these kinds of moves also.
Interesting. So when it comes to, building out theme parks, and when we had lunch earlier, you saw by my face, I was very surprised that Lego built theme parks right next to Disney.
Yeah.
And I asked you, I'm like, how, going up against Goliath is quite a ballsy thing to do.
Yeah.
And was that a deliberate decision of okay, we're gonna go right next to them?
No,
we're gonna take them head on.
I like your question. We had a team of young, clever people who did feasibility studies for us, and our idea was, if we gotta do theme parks, rule 1 is location, rule 2 is location, and rule 3 is location. We gotta have the right location.
Just like in real estate.
Yeah, exactly, and in retail and what have you. And there is Southern California is a good location. There's a lot of wealthy people. There's a lot of children, and it's not that there is competition there. There's also a market. It is a tradition for families there to go often in theme parks.
Yeah.
And we felt ours is a much smaller thing than Disneyland is huge. The things are huge, the rides are huge. You disappear in big holes and go through, and Lego is much more miniature, and Lego is much more younger, real child families. It's not any age, and Lego has its special expressions that Disney doesn't have. Lego is very good at building miniature models of the world you see, because that's what children do. Lego had classrooms much more than Disneyland have, and you can go on with things that were much more Lego-ish than Disneyland. So we felt we're a completely different experience. And when we opened, we could also from research see that was confirmed by consumers. It wasn't expensive either. It's a lower price tag also. We wouldn't have firecrackers or bombardments at night or those kind of things. It was much more small family kind of thing.
So it was a more data-backed decision, less an emotional decision to go into these areas.
Yes.
Understood. And what exactly, like, if you'd had to break down as someone who's been deep in that category, what is the main differentiator? Why, like, when you talk about the client profile, obviously with B2B businesses, you have different client profiles. Are there different client profiles with kids? Like, do you have a definite client profile? Okay, if the parent played Lego, the likelihood of the child playing Lego is higher, or is it
there is.
more
There is.
class, lower class
Yes. Of course, Lego is for every child on Earth, and Lego wants to see it that way. But if you look closer into the data, there's no doubt that there are certain families who are very good for Lego, and they're characterized by a parent engagement that is above average.
Parent to child engagement?
Yes.
So the parent has to be engaged with his child for the likelihood of them buying Lego to be high?
Yeah, it's in the play. It's parents who are engaged in the children's play, and you could say more serious about it than the average parent.
Okay.
Even today, I can see parents who just give the child an iPad or a tablet, and then they're sort of kept quiet. Then now the parents can do something else. Yeah. That's not Lego's parents. Lego's parents are engaged in their children. They will talk to them. They will sing with them. They will create with them. They will do more, and that is Lego's core. And they don't have to be more wealthy. Typically, because of that, they may tend to be also above average education, maybe also a little bit above average income, but not a lot. I think the most discriminating factor is how engaged are the parents in the children's play. That makes a difference. And if the parents got that from their own childhood, there's also a likelihood that they played a lot with Lego in their life. So there's also this repeat model.
Was there any strategy to target this specific?
Yeah, that would be my question exactly. How do you monetize that information?
I couldn't do it today, but the media agencies they would know how to do that.
Yeah.
They would know how to do that. So it's not the ordinary. It's not when you come to advertising and media strategy. It's not just like let's talk to all child families. You would work harder to how can we be precise vis-a-vis the most relevant target group. They would know how to do that, because they, as you know, in the old days there weren't a lot of lifestyle data. It was age and income and geography and a few other things. Those days are gone. It's very multi-dimensional, and depending on which media you use, you can get a lot of data that weren't available in the old days. But there is this family that is interested in their children is better for Lego than the family that is not so interested in their children.
So your profession would be characterized in gathering the data and giving the media agencies the information of that data for them to figure out what to do, or what exactly were you, or was it strategy more, or what was your day-to-day like? It would,
in terms of media agency, it would be both, and they would already know from early briefings how we thought about that. They also had data. It was just not only us having data. It would also be them. they would more have the data that were actionable vis-a-vis using the media. We might have from other sources. It could be focus groups, play exam, penetration studies where we knew where did the Lego end up and all kinds of things. So it was actually not only the data from the one side that made the whole game and nothing from the other, which was just made with two different angles.
Interesting. And were you still there when Lego did that transformation going into video games and movies? Was that, or was that concern of the video games starting in the era where you worked at Lego and then your successors used that concern?
It was both, and I highly would say that they have come a long way since I was there. They do it much better than we did. We were beginners, but we worked with video games when I was there. We made the first one on a licensing basis called Lego Island. It was made together with an American software development. It became the world's best-selling software the year it was launched.
Really?
But that's not enough, because we also had problems, because it was the first time we met. We sort of put our arm into the computers there. Now the children also need to make it work, the child family. So we know from customer service that there would be mothers calling us, and you could hear a child crying, how do I make this CD-ROM work? And then the service person would say, what kind of computer is it you have? And then she would say, it's gray. Yeah, that's not enough, you know. You have come into a target group that was not very profound in computers. And that was, so it also had difficulties. And I think they are much better solved today than then.
Understood.
Yeah.
Another question, how many employees were under your management at the peak times? And how was your daily structure to work with them?
I think because we had theme parks, there's a lot of people in theme parks. So on the salary account in each theme park, when we had these 3 or 4, there would be like 800 people or something. So when they had all together, maybe there were 4,000 people under me, but many of them wouldn't know who I am. In terms of structure, we would have a management team for the things we licensed out. In terms of licensing in, we would work a lot with our American sales company, which was quite big and had a lot of good guys. They were very helping when the deals with Hollywood were made. But also then we had people running each, brand directors running each of the main segments Lego had. There was a segment for very young children, then there was a bit older, and each of these had quite high responsibilities for doing these things also. Then in terms of theme park, we had a design and construction management team, or you can say project management team, and then you would have the individual managers running the parks. So, and in terms of media, we set up a small business in London called Lego Media. They were the first little team that worked with Lego's entry into media, into software, and they all reported me. So I had 8 vice presidents or senior vice presidents reporting to me. And that was okay. Maybe a little bit stretch, maybe a bit of a stretch, but that was okay. I shouldn't be given more than that.
Were you directly involved in the hiring of these senior vice presidents?
Yes, for sure. That was my key job. Yeah.
What would be really interesting to know for me is how many interviews did you do to actually employ one, and what were the things you were looking for when making a very successful hiring?
An important philosophy I've always carried with me, and I don't have it as any private thing, it was a norm in Lego to be very careful with recruiting. So it was okay to use very good recruitment agency. It was okay, or I worked hard for that, saying why should it be a Dane? Why not someone from London or from Hamburg? So we should try to be a little bit more open. And then be sure to have first of all, brief the recruitment agency very, very well. So they were very clear about what is this all about. Then, to be sure that there's ample choice, that they do not just come with one, say, we found the guy for you. Never say, we want to end up with 5 that are so good that we start scratching our heads, and then we skip 3 or 2, and then we take another interview.
Yeah.
And you know, that sort of sorting out mechanism where you speak to 5 at least, and then 3 those 3 are you have met before, and then maybe 1 or 2 in the end. You do that because you also develop your own view of your possibilities in that category as you do these interviews. So you can say the interview is not only in order to find the right person, it also educates you. What is the norm? What can you expect? What is good and bad? What is square and round? Can you follow me?
Yeah,
you educate yourself when you do that.
Did you make better experience with talented, non-experienced people, or with really experienced senior people?
Both. I have a lot of respect for both sides. It's a very good question, David. And of course you look for the ultimate blend.
Yeah.
The research I happen to know from later in my life is that you got to hire people who have a good brain. You just have to. Never lose that. You can forgive some lack of industry knowledge, but if take the example, we were looking for someone to run a theme park. Were we good at running theme park? No, we only had one. And when we asked the people who ran Legoland in Billund, said, how do you do it? Why do you do like this? They said, it's because we have always done like that. You see, there wasn't a lot of learning there. Yeah. They were good people. But we agreed we are not theme park experts. We need to find people with industry background because we can make so many mistakes. And I would argue that maybe in our search for that, we might not always have found the smartest guy in the pot or the smartest lady. But can you follow me? Yeah. If you're moving into a category you don't know enough, but you just feel it is so right for your brand, you gotta go very far for the experience.
Yeah.
If on the other side you say, here's something we know a lot about, we just don't have the time to look after it, we could better take someone who has a bright brain, then we should teach him or her the rest. Can you follow me? Yeah, that's something, some other thing. Yeah.
And what were some typical questions you would ask? Is it something like, we have this issue, what would you do in that?
Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
So you would look for a solution-oriented mind with creativity, who could come up with a solution to the problem that you're facing right now. Yes. And what if the problem that you have at hand, you didn't even know what solution would be the right thing? Like if you faced a new challenge with running a new department where you don't even know what right and wrong is, how would you as an amateur in that field decide that the answer that person gave is good just by personal?
That's where it comes in, that you interview more than that person.
Okay.
You interview many. That's the whole trick.
So you were learning the right answer through multiple people who, and then when you saw an overlap in the smart answers, you were like, okay, this is most likely the right answer. Yeah,
something like that. Honestly.
Interesting. And what we often see is we have a philosophy we teach our clients. We say the right kind of people will never give you a reason to fire them. That's why if you feel like you want to fire someone, fire them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Have you made the same? Have you had the same experience where you took too long to get rid of the wrong people?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every time, it is a classic mistake, and it comes back. It haunts me still of this day. How often we see that from we start feeling there's something not right here. It's not. Then. You still think, it was a mistake, or maybe, or he or she has also good sides. But then after a year or two, when we finally say goodbye, there's a classic learning. I know that from other senior managers. They say the same. We should have done it much earlier. I've seen that so many times.
And what are some of the early signs, if you would be advising the Christian that starts at Lego? What would you tell him? Like, what are the early signs you look for, or would you just tell him if you get the gut feeling, just get rid of that person?
I'm inclined to say just a gut feeling is enough, but it isn't. There has to be a little bit more substance. But once you start, when your gut feeling is there, you also look more for other symptoms. And once they substantiate, they sometimes do, you sort of think, wow, now there can be no more doubt. Now it's time to say goodbye. But there's also, timing is also important. You don't want to hurt people and just say goodbye. You're not good enough, out of the door. That's not what you do. You just don't do that. There's something good in every person. Maybe they weren't briefed well enough. Maybe they weren't inspired well enough. There can be many things, and they have wife or husband and children, things, social life to manage. So I've also always thought a lot about how can we make this change so that this person who is now hurt can go home and tell an explanation without losing his or her face. That means a lot to me, and that was completely in the spirit of how the Lego family worked. But you don't kick people out and humiliate them. You just don't do that.
And on the opposite, did you ever lose an employee you wanted to hold in the company?
Yes, that happened. Not often.
You think this was
very rarely?
Yeah.
Lego was and is a very nice company to work for, and that has to do with the thing you do. It's such a nice product. It comes into your blood, where it comes into your heart in a way. So it wasn't typically that people just left Lego.
Because of the mission, because they did something well for kids and families?
Yeah, and also something else happens when people work for Lego. If you sit in a private setting in your family dinner somewhere, it's because it's Christmas or Easter, and your uncle says, "Oh, where do you work now, Bob?" "I work for Lego." "Oh, Lego, it's such a nice company," and you get all these jokes. Really? That also helps people. That makes them sort of feel, nice company.
And was there something that Lego did above, when it comes to compensation, virtual shares, stock options? Did they ever offer you? I mean, you were obviously a very integral part in the success over the 20 years you were there, even though you would say that you only played a small part from what I've heard already. But,
there's teamwork and a lot of other things happening, yes.
But anyways, did the family or the upper management ever offer any financial incentivization which you thought was very smart to retaining key people?
It came very late. It came in the late 90s, but originally there was nothing of that. There was a little bonuses, but not anywhere comparable to the standards you see now. It's sort of the American model has come to Europe, and you see more heavy incentivization. There was very little of that. Lego was always very modest with that, and I think it's okay. I mean, maybe I'm not American enough in my mind so that I think it's okay if you have a good salary. Should you have extra just because it's going well? Maybe it's not even your fault. It can be so many other things. And if you start getting too mathematical profit calculating your own thing, maybe you do not do the things right. Maybe you sometimes force things more than you should. There's so many things. I recall when we started with some level of bonus in United States, the head of logistics in United States, he knew he should keep his working capital down. So he always order his products from the factory in Billund very late, which was not smart. He should have been much more open about it. But here sits the guy with the same responsibility in Billund. He was not on any bonus. He just tried to do the best for the corporation. And he works with a guy who completely is narrow-minded to his own field. That's not smart. But I may be a little bit old-fashioned on that.
My marketing team also mentioned that I should ask, if you had the role of the CMO of Lego nowadays, how would you influence or operate in the brand strategy nowadays?
To me, there's the fundamental principles are exactly the same. You got to understand how is the brand perceived by the core customer, the children and the parents. How is it perceived? How is the value we create perceived? those are the building blocks. And how do we cope with that? Those are still the building blocks of the brand strategy. Then, of course, there's a lot of technical stuff. Is the awareness okay? You need to have a good awareness. Do we penetrate our new product lines fast enough? There's our cooperation with the retail work. Do we use the right media? There's a lot of things that come under that. But the starting point is, how is the brand perceived? How is the value we create for our customers perceived?
But may I ask, when it comes to Lego, where obviously the consumer and the the person that pays are two differentiating people, who do you ask? Do you ask the parents? Like when you do market research, do you ask the parents, are you satisfied with the creative development of your child? Do they play enough with it that you think the money was worth it? Or do you ask the child, are you having fun? Like what exactly, how do you do that?
It's not so, the fun with toys is, I don't know how they do it these days, but in the old days we would not so much do surveys on child fun. We would much more see it in our testing.
So you would actually do experiments?
A lot of experiments.
In product launches, or what you mean?
Long before launch, you would take products and let them build with it. Or you will take small child, something that could remind you a little bit of child focus groups to understand, to make them to see which themes do they like. Or if you already had a new product line, let them play with it before you launch it so you knew it works. And if it didn't work, no launch. No launch.
And by what reaction would you know that it was a good product? Was it because
the people who did that research for us, they were experts in seeing that. I've also been involved with. I could not with my skill now, but when I was young, I could see it very fast if it was right or wrong. We could have videos also of taking, for instance, when the German Fischer company, was a very great company in Dübel. You know Fischer Dübel?
Yeah.
That family also launched a technical toy called Fischer Technik. Mm-hmm. And I made videos of that. It's so long ago. That was when I was a young market researcher. You could just see they can't find out of it unless they're above 11. And that is a very tiny piece of the market to them. They simply could not find out of it. But it was a very good product. Physically, sort of, with an engineer's mind, it was a good product. But with the play consultant's mind, it wasn't. We could see that.
One last topic I would love to touch upon, because that's something that you mentioned Lego as a family-owned business did very well, is preserving the company's success.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite topics that I always watch documentaries and read books about is the Roman Empire. And there were 5 good Roman emperors, and the last one was Marcus Aurelius. And the one thing that they had in common was that all the 5 good Roman emperors were adopted sons of the previous emperor. So they were picked for the quality of their capability as a leader and not for their heritage and their blood.
Yeah.
What was that a deliberate decision also in Lego to keep it in the family and just pass it down the generation, or did they do something to make sure that the next person in line is the most capable leader?
They have done both, but it's important to say that the current fourth generation leader at Lego is not running the operation. He's more at the holding board kind of level. It's a more principle, very family-oriented decisions he's involved. He's not involved in operation. They've done everything they could to hire the best CEOs to run the operation. They have that. They distinguish that.
One last thing I would be very interested in is when it comes to marketing and marketing strategy, David and me always taking inspiration from big brands.
Yeah.
What were the brands, if there were any, that when you were working at Lego, you looked for parallels and looked for inspiration?
I think Disney was good. I think they did it well. They were good at taking their little cartoons, which is a sort of the core of Disney, and express them into all kinds of things. They've done that very well, I think.
Do you think the course that Disney is going in nowadays is still the right trajectory that they used to? Because
I'm not an expert enough. If I ever was, I couldn't answer that question. I don't know whether they're doing right or wrong. It appears to me they're basically okay. There's a lot of things happening in terms of the TV access to households. No doubt about that. It's a complicated thing happening. The streaming services, are you Are you a partner with Netflix, or do you have your own? Those kind of things. I'm not an expert to answer. I can see the battles going on, but I couldn't answer what is right and wrong there.
Guys, thank you very much for watching this interview. It's been fantastic. I would suggest highly that next time, instead of sitting in front of your computer screen, you should join us at one of our events. The next one will be taking place in October in Los Angeles and Vegas, and then we'll be heading out to Warsaw to our 5th Warsaw event. Anyway, subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for taking part of this video, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.